This is like rocket fuel for my personality. And in today's video, I'm going to give you some rocket fuel to help you move along your painting journey a lot faster. So stay tuned. Hi everyone, welcome to Rachel's Studio. I'm Rachel Parker Varner, and I like to teach not just the how, but the why of watercolor so you move along your painting journey a lot faster. And there's going to be a lot happening in this video because we are going to do a real-time, start to finish tutorial on this wet and wet, intuitive, dreamy, impressionistic Christmas tree. And I'm going to give you all my best tips for painting wet and wet. I'm going to provide you with a line drawing and a reference photo. And by the way, thank you to Alina Fairytale on Pexels.com for this beautiful reference. But I will provide both of those to you for free. All you have to do is join my website as a free member. I promise not to spam you. So that link will be in the description. So here we go. All right, so again, we're working on Stonehenge hot press paper. And for this reference, we've got a negative shape, a very delicate red purple background. So I'm just going to get junk off my palette that leans kind of blue purple. Very pretty pink, almost a pinkish gray cast. Going to get it very watery, very, very watery. This gray red that I just mixed, by the way, from Holbein Aureole in yellow, cobalt blue, and M. Graham Naphthol red, maybe a little bit of fun opera in there too. And just get some junk, permanent green light, whatever. Just a gray blue, or a gray pink. Just adding just the junk off my palette, really. All right, so we're going to paint very tea consistency, drippy. This is dripping, very drippy tea consistency. If you don't know what I mean by tea consistency, go watch my my tutorial I made about painting with tea versus cream versus milk consistency paint. Okay, now I've got to pay attention to what I'm doing. So let me stop talking. All right, so I'm just going to paint this color straight into the tree, and then I'm going to soften that edge because I want this side of the tree to be in shadow, and this side of the tree is going to be hit by light. I'm going to mush my brush like that. This is a bamboo calligraphy brush, and the thing I like about this brush is you can get some really great textures. Let me go in with a clean, clear water brush real quick over here. Don't want any hard edges on this side. But I'm basically painting the edge. Right? And all this is in shadow. And okay, so that's basically, we just painted negatively around this Christmas tree. We can get it a little darker closer to the tree to really give it some pop. So I'm going to just, while this is still wet, I'm going to drop in display my bristles again. And then again, blend out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is wherever I want there to be pure white, I'm going to paint around. So I'm dotting now. I'm just dotting up into this edge. All right, now we can do the fun part that we did before, which is just drop in some colors. Let's do green apatite, right? And very dark. I'm just gonna let this explode into my paper. And already it just looks really cool. And I'm just simply painting around that gift onto wet paper. Wow, look how good that looks, y'all. Oh, it looks so good. It's kind of exciting. And see how I'm painting around some bright lights. And that's why a beautiful reference that gives you some good basic ideas to go by can really help. That's really quite pretty. And this green apatite just makes the most lovely granulations. All right, now we can go in with a little bit of, let's go in with some opera, but watery. I'm going to blot and just insinuate some of these decorations. And again, we are painting loosely, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And then this is kind of getting dry, so I'm going to put some splashes of color in here and just let it do its watercolor thing. Okay, I'm going to get some permanent green light. Permanent green light. This is Winsor Green Gold, y'all. It's not permanent green light. I'm going to get some really dark French ultramarine and just this, I want this darker in here. The secret is to know when to stop. Not going to pretend to be that person that's good. I mean, that just looks so good right now to me. I'm going to splat. So this kind of, to me, shows sometimes it really helps to have a good reference to go by. Painting around that gift. And you can even lift out where that gift is. We can lift it out a little. And we can refine that later because I'm using good Stonehenge Aqua Stonehenge hot press that will lift beautifully. Should we be happy with the beauty that we have, or should we keep futzing with it? That's the question, y'all. Because I just really think that's pretty. Just like that. Well, this is the thing with tutorials. You can see where the magic happens in mine and stop there, so you don't overwork yours and let me make all the mistakes. So let me just, I'm going to get some quinacridone gold, quinacridone gold, whole binaureolin, and then the Daniel Smith transparent pyrrole orange. And I'm going to get it a little watery. And I'm going to drop in, now that this is setting up, it's starting to go into buckling. Let's see if we can get some cauliflower yellow lights by going in with 2 drippy of paint to create cauliflowers on purpose. And I'm going to drop this very watery paint in places that are already kind of light. And then I'm going to splash mine with clean, clear water. And let it set up and dry. Okay, this is set up some more, so now it's in the cauliflower stage. So I'm going to dip my fingers in the water like this, get the excess out and splat, 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 and see if it will give me some interesting cauliflower texture. And isn't it funny that the same techniques that you use to create interesting texture in trees is the same techniques you use for painting fur, which that's my big thing that I do with my students, is painting animals. So these are the same exact techniques I use, except with trees and not a cat. I think that's funny. Okay, we're going to let that dry. Okay, this is one of my signature techniques. We're going to lift on dry paper. I'm using a Princeton Aqualite Velvet Touch, I do believe. It's an angled shader, but it doesn't matter. It's just any soft acrylic painting brush, which is stiffer than a watercolor brush, but not as harsh as an oil painting brush, because we're working on Stonehenge hot press. If I was working on Arches cold press, I would use a stiff scrubber. So it really depends on what paper you're using. If you're using a more delicate paper, you might not be able to lift on dry paper at all. Some papers will take it, others won't. Bow hung cold press is another one that will take a lot of scrubbing, vigorous scrubbing with even stiff scrubbers. Hot press, Stonehenge hot press, will lift beautifully with a soft scrubber like this. And the other secrets to success with this technique, which is a technique I use in every single painting, because look, as I lift up these passages, they leave behind a soft edged lighter area that's really dreamy, perfect for glowing lights, but also perfect for fur effects, blurred out backgrounds in landscapes. The list goes on and on how you can use this technique. I have a whole video about using scrubbers. I have a couple videos now. So be sure to click the links that I share here up in the upper right corner. They will not take you out of this video. They'll just queue up to watch later. But again, I'm getting my angled shader wet with clean, clear water. My painting is perfectly dry. I'm using mostly non-staining paints. That's another trick to success with this technique, using the right paper, using the right paints. Staining paints like sap green, phthalo blue won't lift like this. Most paint will lift pretty nicely, especially the thicker you applied the paint, the easier it is to lift. But also notice how dreamy this looks after I splatted it. I love that splat technique. That is why this looks so dreamy and ethereal. All right, now what I'm going to do is see what I'm just experimenting. Again, I think this is pretty, but I'm going to add some yellows to insinuate a glow in some of these lifted areas. So this is the push and pull in painting. You put something down, see how you like it, adjust. So I put all this wet and wet down, and now I'm adjusting. I'm adding back. I'm pushing back in some yellow. I'm going to see how I like it. So I pulled some paint up with the angled shader, and now I'm putting paint or pushing paint back in, the push and pull of painting. You hear a lot of professional artists say that. This is the heart of intuitive painting. Putting something down, seeing how you like it, and adjusting from there. So your painting, especially since we painted this so wet and wet, is going to need something completely different. But I'm going to give you so many different techniques that you can use for this painting scenario that you'll be able to respond to your painting how you think it needs to be responded to. Which is another reason why I'm going to push this even further, to show you all the possibilities of continuing to work on your painting instead of just abandoning it when it's good enough, to keep pushing, and you can decide where you want to go with yours. So this is my Princeton Velvet, Princeton Aqua Elite 12 long round. Love this brush. It's all synthetic, and it has a really big belly, so it does hold a lot of water, but it has the advantage of synthetics, which is a nice snap and a small point that lets you get into little nooks and crannies. All right, now I'm getting the background wet. I am going to keep pushing this painting to see what I like by getting the background behind it even darker. So I'm getting everything wet so that in the next stage, I'll float in some more paint to get it a little darker, to pop that pretty white highlight from the light hitting this side of the tree. I love how the tree looks right now, though. It's very delicate. So that's my M-gram Naphthalene Red, very watery. I'm just floating it in. And see, when you pre-wet your paper like that, your paint just blends itself. It's just blending itself softly out into the background because I got all this wet. I did not get the white part of the tree wet, of course. This is what we call negative painting. We're painting around the tree. We're painting around the lights. I'm adding a little bit of blue, so it's not screaming red. We don't want a screaming red background because that comes forward. We want this background to be quiet and push back into the back of the painting. So adding blue will help do that. Cools recede. Lighter colors recede. Grays recede. Bright red comes very much forward, more than any other color. And see how I swished some of that over the side of the left of the tree? That helps incorporate the tree into the painting. When your paint is dry, you can swish these watery glazes over your paint, like I did on the left side of the tree, to incorporate it into the painting. And I do that with animals all the time. Like the whole left side of the painting, you can swish this very light wash, and it'll help gently incorporate it into the painting. So you avoid that cutout look. That's one trick of many to avoid the cutout look. And look, we have our Rembrandt edges. We have light tree on dark background, and we have dark tree on darker background. All right, just filling in that present. We're going to keep the presents really soft, and we're going to make those hard edges softer later. But I'm getting some cobalt blue, some red. It doesn't matter really what colors you use here. It's more, is your paint warm, or is it cool, or is it purple, or is it yellow? Doesn't really matter what exact color. Playing by painting around, maybe what are some, I painted around the lights of 2 maybe Christmas ornaments. Or maybe that's a bow on top of the present. Doesn't matter. It just gives a little bit of structure in a sea of softness, which can be nice. To have a few hard edges. We have some nice hard edges in the light, the tree side that's hit by light. Getting some permanent green light by Daniel Smith, mixing it with red to make it a more natural green. Getting some French ultramarine to get it a much darker green. I use this permanent green light as a base a lot, and you can make it any green you want by adding blues and reds and yellows, whatever green you want. This is a great base to work from. All right, so I'm just popping out that present, doing a little bit of push. Later, I'm going to pull more on that present and quiet it down and soften it, because right now it's screaming for attention. So we're going to respond as the painting unfolds to see what it needs, including with that present, because right now that present's standing out way too much, right? So we'll respond to that later. And now I'm just painting almost abstractly around a few Christmas present shapes. And then I'm splatting to loosen up my work a bit, which I do that all the time. All right, I do believe this is completely dry now. I'm going to get a little clean area on my palette. That's the drawback of working on a small palette like this. I do not recommend it. I just do it to have it fit on camera. I like much bigger palettes where you can just leave all that paint. You don't have to soak it up. I'm blotting my heel. Remember, we blot our heel when we want to have control in a small, tiny area. And I'm about to put little dots of orange, I believe, in each of these yellow lights, so they're not flat yellow lights. I want to give them a little bit of depth and dimension. And so I'm just playing with this painting. I'm just responding to my painting intuitively, thinking what it needs. I think a little pop, a lot of times a pop of orange or red will really make a painting pop. So I'm putting little dots of about tea to milk consistency orange on dry paper where those little twinkly lights are to see what I think. So I'm pushing paint in. Later, we're going to pull even more out. This is my opera, my brightest color I have for little pops of color. And I'm just putting them here and there where I have really light areas in my tree and they will show up. Later, these will pretty much get obliterated. We will pull them back out. But see, this is a pretty effect. We have a lot of softness, and then we have a few little hard details in the ornaments. That's what we call jewelry. So for anything you're painting, whether it's a flower, a cat, a tree, whatever, the same rules apply. You want a lot of softness and a few hard details. And this is my green Apatite. What a pretty, pretty color by Daniel Smith. And I'm going to get a little bit more. And now I'm going to push more on this painting. I think I could have left it here. It's really pretty and sweet. And put a cat in there, put a few little bit of line work, boom. I think it would look great. But I'm going to continue to push this painting to see where I can take it. Curiosity killed this cat. And also I think it's good for my students for me to keep pushing to see what will happen. What would happen if we just continue to push this painting? You may decide you don't want to go any further, because this is really pretty right here, I think. And we're only 25 minutes in, so it really didn't take too long. I just switched over that. If it was mine and I wanted this to be done, I'd probably add a cat down in the bottom, and I'd swish over that present with some blue tea consistency glazes and quiet it down and call it a day. Okay, but what I'm doing with my water is I'm still painting my clean, clear water around some of these glowing lights where I don't want paint to go. So I'm not putting water everywhere, but almost everywhere around these glowing lights. But I'm keeping those glowing lights dry so that I don't lose that pretty fresh yellow glow that I have. We're going to attach the tree, just like Charles Reed says, we're going to attach the cast shadow on the floor into the tree as if it was one shape. Which will help this tree not look like a cutout, to have that dark on dark edge. Right, getting some of that apatite, it's a green apatite. I'm getting some ultramarine blue, green apatite, getting it pretty thick. It could use a little bit of red, really. Okay, good job, teacher Rachel, making sure it's on screen. I'm not always good at that. All right, so look, I added some green, some red. What did that do to my green? It grayed it down a little bit so it's not screaming green. It looks more like a natural green now. Getting some more of that green apatite base though, but adding a good bit of red. And you just keep mixing until you like the color. I think beginners really get overwhelmed with mixing, but it's really not hard. I mean, we learned this in preschool. Blue plus yellow equals green. Red plus blue equals purple. Where I think beginners get hung up is, oh, it has to be the exact color green. No, it doesn't. It's got to be the exact value that you need, which is dark. As long as it's dark, you're good. Just don't make it too bright green. Just be sure to add a little bit of red. And so I'm dropping this into the pre-wetted areas. Remember, this is wet, so it's going to flow where I put the water, and it's going to go around some of these light areas of glowing Christmas tree ornaments and lights. Refining that present a little bit, but that present's going to get a lot softer. This is the scary thing, is when you love your tree, and I did, but I just really wanted to push this painting. And look how see how I'm attaching the shadows under the present into the cast shadow into the tree? I'm making it all melt together. Cast shadows give you an opportunity to attach whatever it is you're painting into the scene, into the painting. It's one of Charles Reed's top 5 principles of a good painting, is attaching the cast shadow to the dark shadow in the object that is casting the shadow. So this shadow goes up into the left side of the tree because this is on the shadow side of the tree. And I hate it though. I'm covering up all those pretty granulations. I didn't like that, but I'm painting this not to make a beautiful painting. I'm painting to learn, and I'm painting for you guys to learn. So in the interest of that, it's more important to me to push this painting for you guys and to see where we can take it with adding some darks just in the shadow areas. But it's all really staying nice and soft because I pre-wet it. And you can do the same thing when you're painting animals. You can pre-wet areas and keep darkening them until they're dark enough. As I'm letting my paint set up, and while it sets up, I'm mixing some warms to drop into the light areas and let those yellows touch my wet green paint in the hopes that the more watery yellow will push into the greens and create a glow effect. That's what I was going for. So I'm getting thicker yellow to really push, to have some heft to push into the greens. So you want at least milk consistency yellow to be heavy enough to push into this heavy green pigment to create these glows. That's what I'm going for. This is such a fun, stress-free way to learn about how paint reacts wet and wet. So that looks good. I mean, this is another place we could stop, but I'm going to keep pushing this painting. All right. And now I'm going to drop in some red to see if I could get some dreamy, Christmas isn't complete without red. So I'm pushing in some red now, just a little bit. And what's nice about M-Gram Naphthol Red is it really diffuses, so it explodes in wet paint. So I knew that, and I was hoping it would help this yellow move out into the green too, because it has a diffusion property of exploding on the paper, on wet paper. That's called diffusion. Some paints diffuse a lot and some are more inert, or they don't move a lot when you put them on a wet piece of paper. All right, getting more thick green. So I'm just kind of babysitting this area. And now I'm putting a little bit of green. I realized, okay, that green is going too crazy. So what did I do? I blotted my heel and sucked it back up. Did you see how I did that before it exploded too much? So you can do that. If you put a bit of paint on the paper and it explodes too much, blot your heel. Now you have a thirsty brush. Touch that brush to whatever's exploding too much and suck it back up. I remember thinking I was painting at this stage right here, and I was thinking, well, I ruined it, but that's okay because I am just playing and trying and experimenting, but we're going to bring it back. Splatting like I like to do, to just loosen everything up. And here's real time, Rachel. All right, I'm just going to see if I can just lighten some of these passages with my stiff scrubber. So now we're going to pull some more. So to use a scrubber, you make sure everything's dry, perfectly dry. I try to use non-staining paints, and I get my scrubber wet with clean, clear water. Have a blotting whatever at hand, and you can scrub back to insinuate light. This was several weeks later, by the way, and I forgot it was hot press. Pretty effectively, as much as you want. And this is working great, actually. So I should have used a soft scrubber, not a stiff scrubber on Stonehenge hot press. And the benefit of using a scrubber in this way on like a soft glow, like what you would have on a Christmas tree, is that this added benefit of using a scrubber is that it gives a soft look to whatever you're scrubbing. So it looks like glowing light even more. And it's like adding the lights to a Christmas tree. Look at that. I mean, it really looks good. And then if I want to make these glows warmer, after this is dry from scrubbing, I can go back in yet again, if my paper is decent enough paper, and add more yellow. So this Stonehenge really lets you do this push and pull of painting, especially if you don't use a stiff scrubber like I am. I had forgotten, I just wasn't thinking but I'm going to fix it in a minute.
And the better the paper you use, the more aggressive you can scrub it. This is Stonehenge. So actually, you know what? I could probably use a more delicate scrubber.
Duh. It had literally been like 3 weeks and I hadn't been working on this. So
since this is Stonehenge, I forgot. It might even lift without too much stiff scrubbing. Yep, it really is. That's what I love about this Stonehenge hot press. I forgot that I use Stonehenge. But look, it lifts even, it's actually lifting better with a soft scrubber. You just have to mush at it more. But that's just absolutely incredibly beautiful.
So this is an oil painting brush, which is a little bit stiffer.
And I'm just waking up the glow on this painting. It's just really pretty. You can go into completely dark areas and scrub back almost to the white of the paper really effectively.
Yeah, I think I liked it before I started with this scrubbing session, but that's okay. You know, that makes me want to paint another Christmas tree with new ideas from what I've learned from this painting. That's why artists work in series. They do several Christmas trees, wet and wet, and you learn something with each new successive painting.
I'm just softening all these hard areas too.
And you can apply those paintings. You can apply what you learn to the next painting you do. And that's how artists learn. That's why artists do series. You see artists doing series all the time. This is why, because you learn and you really grow a lot faster.
And I can even soften.
So if you want to put your own painting journey
through here,
rocket fuel, then paint in series and learn your own lessons. So that is the best way to learn watercolor, in conjunction with studying, I do believe, but this really will teach you better than anything.
So you can just soften until you turn blue. And this paper will let you do it for some beautiful, glowing looks.
So this is the jet fuel for developing as an artist, putting your artistic journey on jet fuel and really getting way ahead of the learning curve is these kind of experiments, pushing your painting, seeing what happens, and then doing another painting that's similar and applying what you learned from the last painting. So allowing yourself to experiment, make mistakes, go past the pretty stage and keep pushing your painting to see what happens and see where you should have stopped. Now I could paint another tree, and
I'm also going to fill back in some of these areas that I want to be quieter.
And maybe know when to stop a little bit sooner. Maybe, but we'll see. We might even get this to a stage where we love even more. Let's see what happens. But anyway, this is a stiff oil painting brush, but you can use an angled soft shader on this Stonehenge hot press, and it just lifts like a dream. Look how dreamy it looks when you lift with this. And when you do it in person, you'll see even more how pretty it is to soften all these hard edges.
And then let's see if it'll let me go back in with some pure yellow.
See, now we're going to do more pushing. We just pulled up a bunch. Now we're going to push back in.
To just drop in a little bit of clean glow.
If you're a beginner and you've heard the advice, don't overwork your painting, I don't agree. I would say keep pushing until it doesn't bug you anymore.
To really brighten it up.
And at the risk of overworking your painting, you'll never know what it could have been if you don't keep pushing. And then take those lessons and paint it again. And then the next time maybe stop sooner. but we're adding more warms in.
Pretty fun, right?
So the warms are vibrating with the cools. The cool greens are vibrating with the reds, and the cools and the warms are vibrating together. This is another thing that I'm learning is to make color dance in your painting, have warms and cools, lights and darks playing off each other, because it will make your color really dance. And again, I'm attaching the darks in the tree to the darks in the cast shadow, one of Charles Reed's top 5 suggestions on how to make a painting really work. And this attaches everything together and helps your tree not look like a cutout. Right now, that gift looks like a cutout, so stay tuned to learn how to make elements within your painting not look like cutouts like that gift does. And one of the things I'm doing now is I'm lightly reactivating the paint around the gift and letting it float over the gift. And that's helping incorporating that gift into the shadows of the tree and incorporating that gift back into the painting. And this can apply whether you're painting cat eyes, a flower, a tree, whatever it is in a landscape. The same rules apply to a Christmas tree, to a gift under a Christmas tree, to elements in any painting. You can apply these same principles to anything you're painting. Okay, so I'm pushing back in some reds. Reds really make a painting pop, or hot pink. I'm signing with a Pigma Micron pen, by the way, which is an archival pen. I'm going to do some line work. Put a little star up there. I'm happy with it. I really like how it looks. It's really pretty. It's got soft and hard edges. It's got light tree on dark background, dark tree on dark shadow, dark tree over on the left on light background. It's got at least 3 of the 4 Rembrandt principal edges. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I talk about that in almost every tutorial. So you're going to learn about that because I love the Rembrandt windmill principle coined by James Gurney. I'm just doing some loose line work to pull this all together. I like to post my painting online and get feedback, and it really helps me see things. And what I really wasn't seeing right now was how the top of the tree looks like it's kind of crooked. And so I am dying now to go back in and add a cat up there, making that tree kind of crooked like that up at the top. Do you see what I mean? So this journey might not be quite done. I don't know. I'm afraid to mess this up, but it's just a little painting that took me, what is it, 45 minutes? So I don't know. Stay tuned whether or not I add the cat. I'll let you guys know. But anyway, this is where we can finish. Now, the next thing that would be the best thing for me to do as an artist is to paint another Christmas tree. And you know what? I might just do it because it's Christmas and I've been working hard. I got 2 huge tutorials out. Be sure to go check them out. The Basset Hound tutorial. It's not just about painting a basset hound, y'all. I promise you're going to learn so much about painting. Even if you don't care about painting a basset hound, you're going to learn about the push and pull of painting. You're going to learn about how to continue to work on a painting until it's done. You're going to learn about being experimental. My big experiment in that painting was using watercolor ground on the entire surface of my painting to add a different texture so my work had a different look to it than other watercolorists. So that's a trick to making your own work unique, is to use a different surface than most watercolor artists. So that's why it's really useful to really practice on other surfaces other than, your comfort zone Arches cold press paper, which is what I would say 70% of watercolor artists paint on. So if you want your work to look different, a really easy way to do that is to work on a different surface. So that counts as using plexiglass with pastel ground on it, which I did a video about, or painting Daniel Smith watercolor ground on your paper, like I did for the Basset Hound tutorial I just finished. I also just finished the festive sheep tutorial, and that is about painting a festive sheep, but that's a lot of wet and wet practice. I talk a lot about the warms versus cools dancing together to make the leaves look interesting. I've been noticing a lot this holiday season, beginners painting leaves in their festive holiday card motifs, and they just paint with a flat green and the leaves look flat. And one of the ways to help them not look flat is to paint with warms versus cools, even within one single leaf. So you learn about that and negative painting, and there's so many lessons to be learned from that festive sheep other than painting a festive sheep. So be sure to check out those tutorials. I'm going to the next level in my painting journey, and I'm taking you guys with me. That's what this is all about. My journey to becoming more of a fine artist. I'm entering these big competitions, getting into them, surprising myself. I'm pinching myself. I just earned my Women in Watercolor signature status, which is a huge big deal it's a huge leap forward in my own journey from starting out as a pet portrait painter to getting a signature status in Women in Watercolor. Never thought I would see the day. So that's my journey, and I'm taking you along with me, and I'm pushing myself to learn and passing along those lessons to you. My newest lessons lately have been the windmill principle, warms versus cool, using contrast, and learning about design. Oh, that's the other big thing about the Basset Hound tutorial is using shadows as part of a design element and optical mixing to make your colors really sparkle. Oh my gosh, there's so many good lessons in that Basset Hound tutorial. So I hope you'll go check that out. So anyway, thank you for joining me for this tutorial. And if you stick with me, you're going to learn a lot about how to really push your art journey forward from going from a paint by number approach to tutorials where everything unfolds perfectly and there's no push and pull. And that's how painting is. That's not how developing as a fine artist works. So I'm trying to teach you that process of embracing being scared and uncomfortable and feeling like this isn't working. That's part of the process. It's normal. It does not mean you don't have talent. Okay? All right. So for those of you who listen to all that, wow, I'm impressed. But that's enough for today, right? And until next time, go watercolor your world. Bye, everybody. Oh, and be sure to join my Patreon for free to keep in touch with me, and join my Facebook group for free where you can post your paintings. I would love that. So I hope to see you there. No, really, go watercolor your world. Bye, everybody. What? I'm a serious artist. Look, Kat's got me to where I am today as an artist, so don't hate.